everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. In today's recipe we're making a delicious chipotle meatloaf. So it's kind of taking your traditional meatloaf, but we're making it a little bit different, and then I'm adding actually a chipotle glaze to it, and then some ingredients are a little bit different. So this is incredibly easy, and I want to show you that you can make this in a few minutes really, and it's great for kind of like potlucks or those last minute dinners where you want to impress somebody with something very delicious. So I'm going to roughly chop both my garlic and the golden raisins. The golden raisins give it a really nice sweet touch, especially if you're using chipotle, which is a little bit spicy, and I know not everybody likes spice. So what I do is just roughly chop my raisins, but you finally want to chop these garlic cloves. If you got a garlic press, you can use that as well to make it a little bit easier. So this is very simple. I'm going to start out with my 2 eggs. I like to mix my eggs first before I start putting in all of the other ingredients, just to make sure that the eggs nicely incorporate into all of the meat. Just like to give it a good mix until it's a little foamy. Okay, and now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, which I've got ground cumin, some black pepper and onion powder. In this mix, I've got Himalayan salt, paprika, and ground mustard. If you don't have ground mustard, you can use regular, just mustard, Dijon mustard, or any mustard really. Now we're gonna add our celery, our garlic, and our raisins. So I like using celery in this because the celery has a lot of water, so it makes your meatloaf really moist. I'm going to give this a good mix. Once you've given it a really good mix and you feel everything is well incorporated, we can add our panko breadcrumbs. You can use regular breadcrumbs if you wish, but this makes your meatloaf just a little bit more airy, not so compact. So I am using plain panko breadcrumbs. Let's do this. And now we're going to add our ground beef to this. As far as the meat that I'm using, I like to use just plain beef, and I use about a 90% lean meat. Obviously, the fattier of a meat that you use, your meatloaf will be a lot more kind of juicy because it has more fat. I would not suggest anything leaner than 90 because it'll turn out really dry. You'll have to add a lot of some kind of liquid like milk or oil to kind of make up for that. So now we're going to mix all of this. I like to use my hands for this. I feel like you can get into this a lot better. Start doing this. You can obviously, I guess, use gloves. We'll mix all of those delicious ingredients together, the breadcrumbs, all the spices. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and mix all of that until it's well incorporated, and I'll see you guys in just a bit. So now we're going to make the glaze that goes over our meat. So I'm using a little bit of ketchup, using a low sodium, and I'm using chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. I like my meatloaf to be kind of spicy, so I'm going to use a lot more, using about 4. Obviously, if you don't like it that spicy, then you use about 1 or 2. And I like to blend these up so you get a nice smooth paste. Here's a nice thick sauce. Alright, so to make the meatloaf, you can use kind of like a loaf pan that you would use for bread. If you don't have one though, you can use really any pan. I'll go ahead and show you in this because I know the majority don't have this type of loaf pan. But if you do, you know. So what I'm doing here is I've coated this with a little bit of olive oil just so my meat doesn't stick. It's really just the bottom portion. And I'll show you how to create that log shape, which is really not hard. All right, that looks about good. Now, you do. So here's all my meat. So you start just really, it kind of is like Play-Doh, so you can play around with it and start forming it until you get that log shape. So what I do is just press from the sides, press from the top, press from the sides, press from the top. And that starts forming it, encouraging it to form into kind of like a rectangle. And then I just push this in from one side, and I do the same with the other. So it's just doing this motion over and over again. There you go. All right, now we're going to add that sauce we created. If your sauce is extremely thick, I did want to mention you can add a little apple cider vinegar or even just simply water to make it a little bit thinner. It's optional. Okay, and what I like to do with my meatloaf, if you notice here, is that I like it flat. Some people like to make it kind of round, like a log. I like to make it flat because it'll make it easier to add this. And while I'm doing this, I have my oven preheating. That way it ensures it's nice and hot by the time this goes in, and it doesn't take a lot longer for this to cook. Making sure every crevice gets some sauce. And I like to have a nice thick layer. When it starts caramelizing, it's amazing. It creates like a nice little crust. So my oven is preheated on high, about 400 degrees. And once your oven is nice and hot, then you're going to bake this for about 30 minutes. And you want to keep an eye on this because sometimes depending on the thickness, it might need a little bit more cook time, but about 30 to 40 minutes on 375. And that is how simple it is to make meatloaf. I hope you give this a try because it's not your traditional meatloaf and it's very delicious. So please make sure to subscribe down below. Hey you guys, it is free. I hope you enjoy. Give it a big thumbs up if you like this, and I'll see you in the next video.